Hi guys, it's Sandy with Sandy Cogdill Designs, and I'm thinking that somebody better turn on the lights because it sure looks like we've got a ghost that got caught in the candy jar. This card just cracks me up. Not only is it a card that lights up, but it is also a shaker card. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, sandycogdilldesigns.com. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do on this card is make my ghosts. I am using Trinity Stamps stamp set that's called Sheets and Giggles. I am going to be heat embossing them with black embossing powder on a piece of vellum paper. And since I have all of my embellishing stuff out, I am going to go ahead and heat emboss the candy jar from the Candy Jar stamp set and the word push from the paper crafting stamp set. I'm just going to do that on a piece of black cardstock, and I will be using silver embossing powder. I wanted to make my ghosts a little bit sturdier because they were going to be kind of floating on the front of my card. And because vellum does not play very well with liquid glues, I decided I would use a piece of white double-sided adhesive stick tape and just cut out using the dies that coordinate with the Sheets and Giggle set. Use the dies to cut out another ghost. As you can see, the first time I attempted it, I cut them out on the wrong side of the paper, so they didn't actually work like the sticker I was trying to create. So when you're doing this, just make sure that when you're die cutting your little guys out, that the release paper is up and you're stamping on top of that. In retrospect, I could have just glued or adhered the two pieces of vellum together and then stamped and heat embossed them, but I wasn't quite sure how the vellum paper and the adhesive would work with the heat of the embellishing gun or the heat gun, so I decided I would just do it this way. Also, the ghost that's inside the jar, I want that to be suspended. So I decided the best way to do that would be to take a small piece of acetate and just sandwich it in between the two layers of vellum. That way I would have something to glue onto the top edge of that card and give him the appearance of him floating in there. When I make a shaker card, especially one that's this detailed, I like to create my well using layers of cardstock. So I'm going to cut out 6 pieces of that, or pieces of cardstock of the candy jar, and I'm going to glue 3 of them together for the bottom and then another 3 for the top. In between those 2 layers, I want to put my little ghost. So I'm going to use a piece of double-sided sticky tape or double-sided adhesive to get him placed at the top of that jar. As I am making this card, though, I do find out that between the ghost and the little shaker elements, 3 layers on the bottom is not going to be enough. So I will add another 2. So basically that bottom layer that's underneath where the ghost is floating is 5 layers of cardstock. The top will be 3 layers. Then it'll have the piece of acetate and then the actual heat embossed candy jar on top of that. But for right now, we're just working with the bottom layers. For the background, I've got a piece of blue cardstock that's cut at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2. I wanted to put some little sparkle on it, so I used the Starfield letterpress plate with some silver glimmer foil. I want to add just a few little stars to that background, And I especially want to put 3 little stars inside that candy jar. Those are going to be the ones where the little lights are going to shine through. So I'll get those placed in there first, and then I'll just take the rest of the little stars I have and just sprinkle them around the background. I do kind of place the frame that I've got cut for that on the card to help me, to help guide me where I want those stars. Using the jar as a template, I'll go ahead and cut out a piece of acetate so that I can seal up my little ghost and my little shaker guys. Just be careful when you're doing the gluing that you don't get any of the glue on the acetate because it'll kind of cloud it up and make it look kind of messy. Next, I want to make the holes for my little lights to shine through. So I'm going to use my pokey tool, and underneath my cardstock background, I put a piece of like craft foam, and then I just use that tool to kind of poke a hole in the center of that star, and then I will carefully just push that piece of cardstock all the way up that pokey tool just to make sure that my hole is big enough for the light to shine through. Now I'm going to start placing my lights. This is kind of a little bit confusing because the back side of my cardstock also has the gold foil or the foiling on it. And that's because I foiled the cardstock and I foiled it on the textured side, and I don't like the way foiling looks on textured cardstock, so I flipped it over. That's why I have foiling on both sides. Anyway, I'm going to take my little light and I'm going to place it just right at that hole that I punched with my little pokey tool. And I'll use a little bit of Scotch tape to get that wire taped down there. And then I'll just do that on all 3 of them. And find a good spot where I can put that little battery push button. And I'm always checking to make sure that I haven't kinked anything or disconnected any wires. So I'm always pushing the button to make sure that it's lighting up the way I want it to. I thought it would be fun on the front of my card to have a spider as the push button. So I've cut one out using the Halloween Cup dress up die set. And I just cut the little web that he hangs off the top. And then I'm going to use the frame and the candy jar to kind of help me place that. And once I get my little spider glued on, then I really know exactly where that little push button battery pack needs to be. And I'm going to use a strong piece of double-sided adhesive tape on the back of that little battery button just to make sure that it stays in place on the back of my card. I'm going to glue the bottom part of my candy jar to my background, and I'm going to sprinkle in my little embellishments. The embellishments I'm using are the Spooky Sweets embellishment mix from Trinity Stamps. I'm also going to kind of bend that little piece of acetate up a little bit just to make sure my little ghost isn't resting against that background. I really want the illusion of him floating in that jar. I'm going to put the top part of my candy jar on top of that and get those little embellishments and the little ghost sealed in. I am not going to be using or gluing on that very top piece, the piece that has the heat embossing on it. That I wait to put on until after I have my frame adhered to the card. I just wanted that to look like it was totally in front of everything. So definitely wait on that. On the back side of my background now, I'm going to use foam tape and just go around the entire outside of that backdrop and fill in the center pieces so that it's got support all the way across or behind the background. The foam tape that I'm using is about 2 millimeters thick. I'm going to take a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4 and create my card base. Then I'm going to remove the adhesive, the protective tape on the back of my card and apply it to my card base. When I'm doing this, I like to just remove the protective tape on the center of my foam pieces. That kind of helps me with my placement, as long as some of those still have that protective tape on. Once I have it where I want it, then I'll kind of reach in there and pull out those other pieces of tape and get everything adhered down nice and tight. This card is a wee bit chunky between the shaker element and the foam pieces. I'd say it's more than 1/4 of an inch, so it's definitely going to require more postage if you're actually mailing it. I don't know that I would mail it though because of the battery thing. I'd probably just hand give it to someone. If I gave it away at all, I'm really bad about that. Anyway, I digress. So I also didn't like the way that I used white foam tape on this. So I do go back with a black marker and go around all those edges so that it doesn't show so much. And of course, after I did that, I found my black foam tape. So isn't that the way it always is? I'm going to adhere some 1/4 inch foam tape at the top and the bottom of that card around the candy jar. And then on the actual frame piece, I'm going to apply the foam tape to the frame. The reason I am lifting my frame is because I want my other ghosts to have the appearance that they are floating in the air also. So I am going to use the foam tape in the frame as part of an anchoring, where they're going to be anchored to give me that illusion of them floating. If that makes any sense at all. Now I'm going to apply those little vellum pieces that I die cut to my little ghost shapes to kind of fortify them and make them just a little bit stronger. I'm also going to glue the very top layer of my candy jar on my card now. And as you can tell, I am placing that so that that is the very front of my card, so it's not behind the frame. I'm going to kind of play around with these little guys to see exactly where they're going to look best on the front of that card. Like I said before, vellum doesn't play well with glue. So on the back side, I have taken another piece of adhesive tape and just kind of applied it where that ghost is going to be resting on the candy jar. For the bottom part of the ghost, I placed that underneath the glitter frame. The reason I'm putting it underneath the glitter frame is I have had problems with adhesive tape sticking to some glitter papers. And again, I don't want to use liquid glue, so I use a little bit of undo to get the frame away from the foam tape, and then I just slide that little ghost tail underneath it and then trim as needed. And if you have never tried undo, it is amazing stuff. I have it on my work table all the time. It's great for removing foam tape or adhesive tape or adjusting things when you don't have them on there just right. And now we're going to go ahead and finish up this card. I've got a piece of cardstock cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4. I am using the Simply Sentimental Halloween stamp set to stamp in my sentiment. Once I get that placed and stamped where I want it, I will go ahead and glue it to the inside of my card. And that does it for this particular card. Looks like everything's in place and it lights up and there's that fun little shaker element in it. And I just love it. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope this video has given you a little bit of inspiration to make a card of your own. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdell or on my blog, Sandy Cogdell Designs. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.